When I first learned about individuals who mummified themselves in northern Japan, I was on a train from Sapporo to Asahikawa, and I had never heard of this phenomenon before. Rather than continue my initial plan to go to Siberia and explore the area surrounding some of the northernmost islands, I decided to turn around and go right back to Yamagata. And I visited the first of many bodies that I were to see within the next several years, and that first body was Shinyokai Shonin. And I learned for the first time how these individuals had mummified themselves. And over the course of the next 5 years, I continued to return to Japan to learn as much as I could about the self-mummification process. In those travels, I visited numerous temples, I talked to numerous priests and researchers, and I translated just about every book on the subject that I could find that was written in the Japanese language. I then put the information I found together in this book, Living Buddhas. It's the only English language translation on this extremely rare subject of self-mummification. In order to mummify oneself, these monks in northern Japan typically cut out all grains, and they adopted a diet called mokujikigyo, which literally translates to tree eating, but referred to abstention from cereals. And within that process of abstaining from cereals, they also supplemented their diet with some unusual substances such as pine bark, pine needles, resin. And over the course of approximately 3 to 10 years, depending on the individual, they continually cut out their intake, and the ingestion of such substances like pine needles, pine bark, resin supposedly made their bodies easier to mummify. And at the end of that period, they found a suitable place to bury themselves. They would bury themselves in a hole, and their followers would then cover up the top of the coffin, leaving a small bamboo breathing tube in place to provide oxygen. Inside their tombs, they would continue to meditate and ring a bell, and when the followers heard the bell stop ringing, they would seal the tomb and then leave it untouched for approximately 3 years, at which time they would dig the bodies up. And if the individuals had mummified, they were thought to be sokushimmutsu, those who had attained Buddhahood in the flesh. And if that were the case, the bodies were cleaned, redressed, and then enshrined in special temple halls. If it was found that they were not mummified, then the bodies were simply reburied and an exorcism was performed. Within this text, I provide more specific information on the diets that they adhere to. I also provide more specific information on the specific individuals who carried out the act. And I provide some examples of where the practice originated. And it seems to have originated in China and in parts of Tibet. And it's my belief that the entire process was carried out in Japan due to a mistranslation of some ancient Taoist text. So I urge you, if you're interested in this subject at all, to pick up Living Buddhas, the Self-Mummified Monks of Yamagata, Japan. It's the only English language book on the subject of self-mummification.